We are excited to welcome you all to day 2 of our academy. I know some of you were with us yesterday, where we talked all about different settings, our CRM and lead management tool, as well as some other very interesting topics that I hope you all walked away with. And today we're going to be taking our project management deep dive. So we are very looking forward to kind of going through things with you today. But as a reminder, my name is Chloe, and if I haven't met you, I'm looking forward to kind of talking through Houzz Pro with you today. I'm one of the directors here at Houzz who oversees many different teams, and I've been here for about 8 years. So I'm really looking forward to sharing with you all the things that we love about Houzz Pro. And then I'd love to introduce you to Mike Nelson, who's going to be our presenter today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Nelson, as Chloe just said. I have been here since the Ivy days. I like to say that I was hired by Houzz, but Lee selected me from Ivy, so kind of from both. I've worked with a lot of different interior decorators over the years, and the system really works great for them. So I'm excited to show you how to use it and blend it with your styles.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so as a reminder of our agenda today, we got a lot in store for you. So I hope you guys are ready to sit back, learn, and soak it all in. But what we have today is Mike is going to walk us through our best practices for building proposals, starting with our amazing Houzz Pro Clipper. Separately, we're going to walk through setting up scheduled payments, working through invoices, and then using purchase orders. We also have a very new addition to Houzz Pro that we're so excited about, and a lot of our interior designers love it, which is our project tracker. And then lastly, we're going to walk through the power of the client dashboard. We do want to make this as engaging as possible. We are here for you guys, so you should see a Q&A option over on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to put all your questions there. I am here to help moderate, answer your questions. If anything is relevant to the whole audience, we will absolutely share it out. And hopefully you walk away with some really great takeaways. So, Mike, I think we are ready to dive right in. If you want to walk us through some project management best practices.
All right, let me share my screen and we will jump right in. All right, so I'm starting here just on the Houzz Pro landing page. As you can see, I'm signed in. I've got notifications, everything. And this is really where you probably left off yesterday if you were here. And with leads, and we'll just say it's time to take your lead and make it into a project. And it's real quickly, from the lead, you can make a project. If you didn't get the lead, that's fine. You can actually just come in here and create a brand new project yourself. Just if we click on projects, you'll see I've got all my projects here on a list, and I can jump right in. Before I do that, though, I just want to show you that you do have a couple tools here that we want to you might need to use a little bit before creating it. Again, let's say that it wasn't a lead, so you haven't even entered this person that you're working with into the system. You'd want to start here with your clients, and you can just come in here and add a brand new client. Just put in their name, email address, phone number, all the pertinent information, save, and you'll have a brand new client in there. And then if you're select one of those pre-existing clients. Same with vendors. Maybe in setting up the project, maybe you had some vendors that you know that you were going to start shopping from. You can always go in and add them first as well. You kind of do that pre-work. But those are where you'll probably start with. Along here, there is also task. That's probably more when you're into your project, though. You can create tasks for yourself and your team members. And then you do have a timeline summary. So this is all my projects that I have going on. And you can see it's kind of zoomed out right now because I've got long projects, probably not quite what you would see, but you would definitely be able to jump into any one of those projects and see the specific timeline for it. But let's go in and we'll jump into a project that I just created, or actually, let's just go ahead and create a new one. So we've got the create new project. Again, this is also available in the leads, so you can, go right in, and then all this would be filled out with that leads information. But let's go ahead and give this a new project name. That's completely up to you. I'll say that right off the bat. Some people have codes that they use to assign a team member, maybe put their initials in it. Some people put the actual street address. Some people give the project a nickname. Completely up to you. I'm going to do maybe Wanda's, and apologize for my bad typing skills, Wanda's new apartment. And then down here, I'll just go through my clients list, and I should have Wanda on there already. So I'm just going to search. And let's see, she's not coming up, but there she is, Wanda. Or like I said, you can actually, if you didn't create a client in that list I was just showing you, you can come right over here and create a client this way. And just that, all of this, and it would go right onto that clients list that we were just looking at. Here we're going to choose a project. So maybe in here, we'll go with, a full home, whatever it is that she's actually doing. Again, you can also do your own project type, but I'm just going to do interior design and see if that's in there. And a project code, again, completely up to you. That could be for your own bookkeeping if you want to have a code for it. Really just anything you want to put in there. And then if you do have team members, I unfortunately don't in my account, but you can add them. They would be listed here, and you can make that team member basically in charge of this. Down here, you're going to see their address. I've got it defaulted because there's only one address, so that we're using that as her billable address and shipping, but you can add more addresses to the project. You can go ahead and choose rooms that you're going to work on if you already know, and of course you can add new rooms. Let's make this maybe she has a game room, so we'll go ahead and add that in there as well. And down here, any additional information. Unfortunately, because this is my demo account, I don't have my online payment set up, but that's something that you would be able to do in your settings, and then it would just show you, and you'd be able to select whether you want them to, if you wanted to accept ACH or electronic bank transfers, as well as credit card payments. If you just want one or the other, you're more than welcome to choose that, and you can actually even turn it off as well. But now we're done, so we'll go ahead and create that project. Have this landing page now for Wanda's new apartment, and you can see we're ready. We've got all of her information. If we maybe have to go in there and change anything that we just set, we can go back into the edit and change it. Now, I guess the first thing we would want to do is probably go in there and find a product for her. Again, you might not necessarily jump right into that, but that's probably the next step that you would need to use the system for. And so I'll just come over here to just another generic website. It happens to be a furniture store in the area. And I'll go find maybe something I want to present for her. So let's go into some one-of-a-kinds. These are always fun. So let's go with this sheep's head. I don't know who would want that, but you can see I already have the Ivy or Houzz clipper. It goes by both names. Added as an extension. You can real quickly do that in your Houzz Pro. It actually walks you through that process. But once you have that added on, you're always going to see this little Ivy leaf, and just click on that. I've just signed into my computer, so I'm not signed into it right now. So I'm going to want to go ahead and put in my email address and sign in with Houzz Pro. And there we go. And then I'm going to sign in with Houzz Pro. You're going to land on your Houzz landing page. And you might think that's good enough, but you actually do have to go to Houzz Pro. Just because there's some people that have multiple profiles and things like that, we just want to make sure that we're linking that extension to the right Houzz Pro page. So now if I go back into it, we'll see it's already selected the first picture for me, and it's all set and ready to go. This is the greatest tool. It's going to make finding something like this online that you want to present. Maybe we want to present the other photos. So I'll just click on the leaf again, and you can see up in the corner, it's adding the different images. And then to make this really easy, you just highlight. And when you lift up your finger from highlighting, then you get to pick where you want to put that. So this is going to be my product title. This might be my cost. So I'll go in there and put that in cost. When you get to cost, though, there might be additional information, things like that. So we can come over here and click on this calculator. And that's where, maybe I'm not actually going to pay retail price. I've got a relationship with them as a designer. So maybe I'm actually just going to pay, let's say $900 for that. But I want to show a markup, and I can put that markup in as a percentage. Maybe I'm going to mark it up 35%. And then if I see this price here and I'm like, well, that's a weird price. I just want to actually type in a price, $12.50, or actually, let me retype $12.50. That'll do the calculation for you. So you can either use the dollar amount you want to charge or a percentage you want to charge. And then we can go ahead in here, and because we are coming in under that, or maybe we just want to keep it for our records, I'm going to put in that MSRP as well. And then set those prices. Going back over here to the clipper, I can kind of come in here, and this one doesn't have a whole lot of information, but I can come down here to the dimensions, just again highlight and choose dimensions. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. And then, like I said, it doesn't really have much of a product description, but I'm just going to go ahead and call that my description. Put that in client. You can see there's other things, manufacturers. I can choose this and maybe put it into a category of my products. And then I can select a vendor from my list. This seller is already on here. If they weren't on here, you can actually add a new vendor. Just like we added a client while we created a project, we can actually add a vendor while we're clipping products as well. And then I can select the project that I want to assign this to. If you're just looking at this and thinking, oh, hey, you know what, I'm going to add this to some project at some point in my career, you could just add it without a project. But in this case, I know that Wanda's a sheep fan, so I'm going to go ahead and present it to her. So I'll go ahead and add it to that project. And then you can even select a room. Remember, we assigned game room, but I could actually assign more rooms in here as well. So maybe this is going to be in a different room, like her, I don't know, let's say her study. And I'll create study as a room, and we'll assign it there. And there's additional details that you can fill in as you want. You can even tag it. Tag it is so that on your list, you might be, maybe I would put scary as a tag for this, and then I could search scary later on and be able to find it, even though that's not in the description anywhere. Internal notes for yourself, all sorts of great information. Really, you can see how quickly you can get your products into the system. And I'm just going to hit save. And then it's been added. I can either continue or go ahead and jump over to Houzz Pro. I'm just going to click continue, but jump back in here to my project.
And Mike, we have a couple questions actually too on the clipper. One question, and it sounds like some of you are actually avid users, which is great. So I know Mike was showing you how you can kind of hover over and unclick, and then you can drop it to where you would like that information saved. You also have that finger up at the top right. If you maybe want to demonstrate that, Mike, it sounds like some of them use that option too.
Let's go and find another product. And we'll do this. And so I was highlighting, and then when it's done, I pick where it's going. Again, just dealer's choice. You can click on that finger, and instead it auto highlights. Mm-hmm. And then that's where I could go in here and click on it with just my button after I've got it highlighted, and then assign that to cost. Click on it, assign it to product title. So same thing, just everybody likes different things. You can see sometimes in here, if you're going to get a whole paragraph and things like that, it's real easy. Do you just want one? Do you want the whole thing? It'll highlight real quickly. And I kind of use them interchangeably, but I know a lot of designers like one or the other. So
awesome.
Definitely.
And then Kelly, she asked a great question. The clipper is so intuitive, but sometimes it follows you around when you don't want it to.
Yes.
So,
if you're on your internet surfing and you're not on a case or anything like that, real easy. All you need to do, and I'm just going to come up here, and you can see where it's in my toolbar. And that's, of course, in Chrome. Just click on that toolbar with your right-hand click, and then you can disable the clipper. And that's basically putting it to sleep. So you won't be seeing that little ivy leaf everywhere until you decide, hey, you know what, I've got to start shopping for a client again. Come right back in here, and then disable won't be there. It would be activate, and then it'll turn it back on.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then, Mike, I know we commonly get asked, what information can a client see versus what's my internal information? Where should I be cautious of that? Would you mind pointing out that to them?
That's definitely something that you want to work on when you're here in the putting together the product. The only things that they're going to see is going to be the total price. So if I come in here again and look at this, they're only going to see this client price that you put in. So they won't see your markup. They won't see your, the unit cost. They won't see the MSRP. They're only going to see the client price. And that's only when you assign it. Whenever, if you're just presenting it to them, let's say on a board or, something like that, a tear sheet, you can always choose to make those without prices. So again, don't worry too much about that, but just know it's always going to be the client price. The other thing that you're going to see is the client description. So those are the two, and the client name. But let me go into the system and show you how that's a little bit tricky when I say the client name. So if I come in here and I'm just going to go up to my manage and find my products. So this is a list of everything I've ever clipped and or added. So you can see here's my sheep's head. Now I might know that if I leave that as that product name, they're going to be able to find it. So what you can do for all of your products, I'm just going to go in here and edit. There we go, edit. I might change this and give it a new name. I don't want to do it here though, because this is my library. So that would be like changing your, a book title to a nickname. So you don't want to do it here, but later on when I present it, I'm going to show you where you can give this an alias so that it won't change and the client won't see it as well. And we'll get that in just a second. The other thing to be worried about when I come back over here is when I say that the client description is all that's going to be viewable to them, it does actually add a little bit of extra detail, and it will give them the dimensions that you put in, the finishing color, and the materials. But it'll only give them that if you filled it in. If they're blank, it will, won't say dimensions and be blank. It'll only add those if you've added something. And again, let's just go into a project, and we will.
One more question.
Sure.
Renata has a great question. She says, can I create a database of products with the clipper as opposed to just only within a certain project? So it sounds like the use case might be, I got this amazing sofa rug that I just love and I want to use it in more projects as opposed to just one. What's your recommendation?
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of what we're looking at here with our product list. So again, this is a one-of-a-kind item, but this bed might be like a bed that is really great and I use it all, or maybe the ceiling light. So these are always going to stay here. So anything that you clipped, if you don't assign it to a project or if you assign it to a project, no matter what, when you clip it, it's going to come in here and be in this database. And then you can search this database however you want. So like if I search bed, those both have bed in their name, so they're going to come up, but you can search it by category. You can search it by vendor. You can also filter it that way as well. Maybe you only want to look at things that I've clipped from the one vendor, and now we've got two things there. So you really, this is a great database. And later on, as you can see, I can come over here and I can add it to a project. So if I knew, this thing that I clipped a long time ago, I want to go ahead and add that to a project. I can just come in here, find Wanda's apartment again, and add it in there. So you can actually go shopping online with the clipper, or you can go shopping in your products list of products that you've already clipped. And the other kind of database that we do have, which we're going to get into a little bit later, is going to be your project database or project tracker. And that I do see a lot of people that, kind of are using the same products over and over again and things like that. They might actually create a test product or a dummy project that they just put a whole lot of products in so that they can real quickly create tear sheets and things like that and go in there and see them real quickly. So those two ways are how you'll have that database or sell sheet or whatever you want to call that list of your products. Sound good? But let's jump back into that project real quickly, because I do want to show you the full answer on what the clients can see. So we're going to jump back into Wanda's apartment. And now when I go into something like creating a proposal, that is going to give me all the information. It just draws it all from all my settings. So here's, again, my company information. Here's a temporary estimate name, but I can, of course, come in here and change it. So maybe I'm going to change this to her study. And just real quickly like that, you just type in and change it. Over here's her information. Again, maybe I have a create date. Maybe I know when this is going to be due. I can go ahead and set that up right now. Put that in on 28th. You can see it's in draft mode. We haven't saved anything. So I'm just going to go in here and add an item. And here is my sheep's head. And then if I want to go ahead and add it, I can. And when I'm done with that, I can come over here. And then this is, remember I was telling you that it has two names. I can come in here and change the name and give it an alias. And this won't affect my products in the library. So again, if I want to call this artwork for her, but if I look at artwork later on my list, I might have, thousands of pieces of artwork, or maybe knickknack I want to call, whatever I want to call this. So that's why I would leave it as the real name in my product list that we were just looking at, but I'll change it here so that the client sees a different name. And that's, again, goes to when you're proposing it to the client, what's the client going to see? I'm going to give this a new name of, let's just go with that, knickknack, or maybe I'll just call it sheep list. If it'll let me type it in there. Come on now. There we go. Got a little bit of a delay here. We might just leave it at S since it doesn't seem to want to take my typing.
The technical difficulties of
yeah. There we go. We've got enough in there now. We'll just do capital sheep. And so I've got sheep in there. The other things that I'm going to look at here again, this is just all that same information that we were looking at earlier when we clipped it. Here is all the information. Again, I didn't put that much in when I was creating this, so there's not a lot here. There's my cost. If I do decide, hey, I want to change it, I can, of course, come in here and change that again, but it's got the markup in there. I could add a room. Again, I'm going to put that in the study. I could add colors and things like that now. Let's just go in here and say, it'll let me. White. And we'll choose that. And then this is where, maybe right now I don't have shipping. Maybe I'm just going to estimate the shipping. You can, again, it's up to your style of how you're presenting things for an estimate, but that's in here. And now what I'm going to do real quickly is come up here and preview and share just to answer that question of what the client's going to see. Here, they're only seeing that name that I gave it. And that's going to be on the proposal itself. And I'm just going to go back in to my edit mode. But I do have some abilities in here to share this. We'll kind of cover this. I'm just going to kind of want to go through more before we get to sharing it. But I've added one item. I can come over here to settings, and this is where I could turn things off. So if I didn't want them ever to see dimensions, I could turn, if I think that's going to confuse them, maybe I could turn that off. I could turn off color. I can definitely turn off shipping markup. I don't want them to see that. But this isn't what they're seeing. This is what you're seeing. So that's why, again, if you use those, go ahead and leave them. If it's something that, again, when you present to them, you don't want to see any of these, just go ahead and change it. And then you can always add a new column as well. I know, like, for a lot of people working with fabrics, they need like a cut line, things like that they want to notate in there. So you can always add a new column as well. Line. And you can even change that to, is it a date? Is it a single, how you want to? I'm just going to leave that as a text field and then hit OK. And now we should see that that is one of our items here. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more items. So again, we only clipped the one item and added it to this project. So I'm going to come in here, and this is actually accessing my product list. So this is everything I've ever clipped or added to my product list. So let's go ahead and we'll add a ceiling light to it, maybe a coffee table. And you can see real quickly, it's very easy to add things. You can also add services. So maybe because we know we're adding a ceiling light, maybe we're going to have some electrical work. Maybe it's a brand new service. You can always come in, and just like when you were clipping and putting in your product, this is going to be the same thing. You can put in whatever service name you want. You can give it a category. Is it a labor? Is it a design? So anything that you want to add in here, just put in a cost. And again, it can have an MSRP that's lower or higher. If it's, your consultation, you could put that in there as a service. Pricing could be $500, but the MSRP is $1,000 because you're giving them a discount. And then obviously taxable or not, but real easy to put those services in there. You can see you can even add a photo. Like I don't have a photo for my electrical work. You could put a clip art of, a plug or whatever you want to put in there. And these are all free. Once you've added it, you can really come in here and tailor them. So like maybe this is by hours. Maybe in this case, it's just by the job. So I'm just going to change that to pieces and then maybe put in here, instead of price per hour, electrical work, cost to rewire ceiling. And then I would change that from $75 to maybe $250 or $25 since the zero doesn't want to come in. There we go. So again, real easy, super easy. Now you're thinking, okay, well, what if I want those two items that are kind of related? You can just come over here and drag it down and lock it into place wherever you want it. The other thing you can do is if I were to assign the rooms again, is I'm going to add this to the game room, and this to the game room, and this goes in the study. I can come in here and I can group by room, and now they're grouped by rooms. So you can real quickly kind of go in there and do that. I have seen people, instead of using rooms in the rooms, like if maybe this was all for like a bathroom and they had some that was electrical and some that was tile, all those different parts of that project, just instead of a room, put in their tile work, plumbing, and then you could use that room category to assign the group however you want. Do we have any questions yet on putting together a proposal?
Yes, we do have a question. It sounds like when some of the designers, when they're using these proposals, they kind of have a foundation of what they may use for their next project. And they're wondering, is there a way to save this work to create maybe like a template?
Sure. If we come under here under more actions, you can duplicate and edit. So that, if you found this and now, hey, I'm going to go ahead and use it on this one other project because like this one's super kind of rare, or you can save it as a template. Either way. So if it's your consultation and a couple of different items on there that go hand in hand with your normal consultation, you can definitely save that as a template, and you get a new lead. Send them your consultation proposal, and that way they have that kind of as a real quick thing that they can pay and start the project.
Yeah, I love that. It's a newer feature on Houzz Pro. And then we actually have another question, which is kind of on your screen, which is probably prompting. Kimmy is asking if there is an approved per line item option within the proposal feature.
There sure is. You can turn it on here, and then you'll be able to see that. So I'm just going to come in here, and you can see, like, I can actually come in here and decline them all right now. And then I actually can go in there and do it right now. And just save, cancel. A lot of people, though, when you're presenting it, you want the client to have that ability, and that's available. If you have that selected when you send it, they'll have that approved by line. And even when we're about to send it, I'll show you where you can turn that on as well, just for the client. The other thing that's under more actions that goes back to one of our other questions was what presents to the client. Maybe you're not ready to send them over a full-blown project proposal or whatever you want to call this document. Maybe you just want to present those items to them. This is where you can download your tear sheets with or without pricing. I'm just going to do it with pricing just so you guys can see that. And you can give it a name, and that's going to get emailed to you. So let me jump over to my other screen where my email is. So let me bring this over real quickly. So there's my email that I got with the tear sheet. Drag that back over so you're not seeing all my emails. And instead, I'll just click on that link, and then I'll bring the tear sheets over. So here's the tear sheet. Again, I don't have much of a logo, but that's my company logo. So it does have your branding on it. Here you'll see it's got the room name study. And then remember, here is where we've got the title we gave it was sheep. This one's a little bit crazy because our client description was the same, but you can see that it does have the name we gave it and then the client description. And that's really all it has. And then it's got, again, my branding at the bottom. If we scroll down here, this one probably looks a little bit better. This is where it's got an actual name, and then you can see it's got the client description in there. And if we scroll down, here's a coffee table. Again, has all that information you would need. And this time I did show pricing, so it's just going to be the client price that's showing on all of these. So they're not going to see that it was actually $199 and I marked it up $100. None of that in there. And then you can see even the electrical work appears on the tear sheet as well. So those tear sheets are a great way of presenting. You can send those, you can save them to your project as a file as well. And then that way your client would be able to see it if you've shared your dashboard with them, which we'll go over a little bit more detail, but lots of great ways to kind of share those products with the client even before you get to sharing the actual document with them. Before we can go into sharing it, I'm just going to come down here and show you that when I set up this project, you guys saw me walk through it, I didn't set up a tax rate. So right now there's none associated with this. I'm just going to go ahead and pick out my tax rate. You could have done that if you were creating a project. You could have created a tax rate, or you can do it here. Sometimes different, maybe it's a project that's in two areas. That way you can actually check between your two tax rates and choose the one that's appropriate. And then we do have our markup. Here you can actually get a breakdown because it's all going to lump in as one markup that you're going to see, but you might want to see what was shipping and what was just a product. And then down here, we've got some more, again, files. Maybe you have like an actual written contract or terms and conditions you want to attach. You can always add that in here. Maybe, sell sheets from the manufacturers, whatever you want to add, you can add files down here. And then we can also do our payments at this point. Because this is a proposal, I can either schedule payment and, that would just be a normal payment, but I could also request a deposit. And what's cool about a deposit is that means that when they approve it, they also have to pay that deposit. So you're not losing any money. Like, you wouldn't want to go and buy that sheep's head and then this client back out on it. So that's why you'd want to get that money up front. But maybe you don't want the full amount. Maybe, that electrical work is coming later and you trust your client to pay for that, whatever it is. Or maybe you just want to go 50% with them. You can come in here and request a deposit as well. Here it's showing me my total amount. So I could just type in the amount that I want to have them pay, let's say $1,000. Or I could come over here, turn it on to a percentage, and maybe I want it to be 50%. And I could put that in there, and then you can see it's changing that deposit amount. And then my payment terms, when do I want that? Do I want it due on receipt? I can change it to, 15 days from now, or I could even come in here and choose, I want my answer by next Monday. So I'll put that in. You can see it chooses custom from the list. And then that way, again, you can send them without a deposit, just get the approval and collect money normally, or you can do a deposit like this. So I'll just hit create on that. So now we're all set. We're ready to go. Time to get that payment or get that approval. I'm just going to come over here to preview and share. And this is, again, real quickly, it shows you what can your client see. And right now they are just seeing the name and the price. So that's where I can come in here on pricing. Do I want to show them my markup? Probably not, but I could. I could also take away that where it's literally just by room. So there's no detail really at all. So, kind of up to you how you want to do it. Again, this is just taking it so it's still by room and showing the product details, but it's not showing a line by line price. Lots of different ways, I know for different ways of charging, but maybe you do want them to see some other info like our quantity and unit cost. So we can always add that in. We can also add in the item info, which is that full client description. Makes it a little bit busy, so I can definitely see taking that one off and maybe leaving the other. And then here's that approval. So do I want just an electronic signature where they just send that back to me and say, hey, this is good to go? Or do I want that approval per line? So this is where you would turn that on for your client. When your client gets it, they get to go through and actually approve and decline each item. And what's kind of cool about it is it's normally live. So like if I go in and decline the electrical work, that should, when I go in there and decline it, decline that price. So if I was requesting that deposit, because I set it up at 50%, it goes down by $250. Then that's going to reduce how much the deposit is. So if they only pay what they're approving for. Also, I know some people want to maybe make a nice email themselves and send this out. You can just use a link, and that's going to copy the link and send so that you can just put it into an email that you're writing and sending to the customer. And you can also come over here and export as a PDF if you want a hard copy of it. In this day and age, not too many of those. Or you can go back into edit and make some other changes to it as well. I am just going to copy that link though real quickly. Come over here and log into it. And this is really what your client, if you sent it, would get an email with that link in it, embedded in. And this is what they're going to see. So this is me looking at it as my client coming in here. And now you can see I'm declining items and it's changing the pricing. So really kind of a great look of these items. And again, they can undo that as well. You can additionally, they can actually send a message to you. If maybe they had some questions like, can I get that silly light in a different color, whatever it is. And they can also come in here and approve and decline or reset all the items all at once. So they don't have to go line by line by line if it's a huge document.
Mike, we have a question
Sure.
from Sia. If we have this kind of setup and maybe the client does decline a couple items, is there a record to see what were the products that were sent, whether approved or declined, if we need a reference back?
For sure. So you saw when I went in here and declined it, it stays on this document as declined. And one thing that we're going to get in later, again, I keep talking about it, is our project tracker or our project dashboard. There's kind of a couple different names, but this is the actual your project tracker. These items are all going to be on that project tracker. So you'll have the approved items and it'll have, the proposal number that's assigned to it. And then it'll have, if it was approved or declined on there. Even the items that, maybe while we were putting this together, we found something, assigned it to the project, and then we're like, I don't even want to present that to her. That is still going to be in that project tracker as a draft item. So everything you have is recorded. You do not need to worry about it. The only thing that would be is if you're making changes yourself. So like if I go back in and I leave the client one and go back in as myself, if I decided, hey, I don't want to present this coffee table to him anymore, and I remove it, that's going to remove the item. And again, it's not, you never presented it. So that's why we really don't recommend, removing it. We would rather you just go in there and decline it. Again, so you have that record. But even if you did remove it, it would go back to that draft status where it's saying that the coffee table is related to this project, but not assigned. It was just a draft item that was never assigned to anything. So you will still have that on there. But like the things that don't record that way, like if I go in there and I decide, I'm going to give them a great deal on this, I'm going to move that to, actually I'd be moving the markup. and say instead of 35%, I'm going to change it to a fixed amount and only charge them $975 for that item. There's no record of why it changed. So things like that, when you're going in there and changing items, that's what you kind of want to make sure if there's no rhyme or reason to why you're doing that, maybe put it in the description or in the internal notes or something like that. Drop price because it was damaged, whatever, found a great deal, was able to get these, in bulk, whatever it is to kind of explain why you changed it. Otherwise, when you go back in there and say, well, wait, that normally is, something I charged $1,300 for. Why did I give it to him for $975? But we will definitely keep a tracking of whatever that current pricing is. Any other questions on the proposal?
I think I got most of them, but keep them coming in. There's some great questions that are being asked, but I will interrupt you if more come in.
No, okay. What you didn't see when I was showing you this link or the link to the document, again, I don't have a real account, so I don't have an online payment source. But if you did, then it would be asking for it to take a payment on that deposit I set up. And they'll actually see it. And if they want to pay it electronically, perfect. It gives them, again, whatever you selected, credit cards or electronic transfers are both things that they can do through the system. If they pay that way, that's perfect. That's great. You'll get your money very quickly within 2 banking days of them making a payment. But maybe they say, hey, you know what? I don't want to pay online. That's perfectly cool too. You can come back over here to what we probably want to do is just mark it as approved, because they did approve it. Now they wrote me a check. So I'm going to go back in here and scroll down. And remember, we have our deposit down here. I could just log a payment. So you come in here and say, you know what? They did decide to Venmo me some money. And because it's a deposit, it has to be that amount. So it won't let me change it. If it was just a regular logged payment, you could change, different amounts. I can put in a reference number, and I can even send them a receipt where they would get another email, showing that the proposal is now paid. And then I'll have that as done. So real quickly, just because I went in and did that, I'm going to just add some more items real quickly. If it'll let me, but I think because I approved it, it's not, but that's okay. Because our next step is we've gone through all these items. We've got our deposit. Now you guys go and do your design magic, get those products, start, working on this. So your next thing is going to be create an invoice. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and come in here. It's going to take that entire payment and move that forward, which makes sense. If you didn't want it to take that full amount, you could go ahead and that's what you really would have done a deposit in that case. But you could go in there and if it was more, not take all that money. But I'm just going to go ahead and take it. I mean, there's really very few cases where you wouldn't want to take that money. And then, as you know, life happens. And at this point now, we've gone ahead and figured out how much the shipping is going to be on all of these items. So maybe to get that delivered, it was $100, but I'm going to white glove it. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that up 25%, change that to a percentage. And then not really any shipping on the electrical work, but this was probably quite a bit to ship. Let's do it at 199. And again, this one took 25%. So things like that happened during the project. Again, the other things that happened during the project, maybe the pricing on this changed. So instead of us going in here and mark it up 60%, maybe I want to mark it up more, or I could actually just come in here to the price I paid and mark that up to, maybe I ended up paying $550 for it. And because I'm using the same percentage, it's just going to mark that up. Let me show you what I mean. So it's gone up to 880. So my profit stayed, it's still going it up 60%. So things like that happen between the estimate, proposal, whichever you want to call it, and what actually happened on the invoice.
Mike, that actually prompted a great question.
Okay.
It sounds like some designers who have had this library maybe for a long time, now the pricing has changed.
Sure.
Is there easy way when they're working on these documents to go and update their library so that pricing is reflected.
At this time, you would need to go into your library to make that effective. So you'd go in and we'd find the sheep on the library, mark it up or mark that coffee table up to $5.50, whatever that pricing is. And then that way it's saving for the next time you use it. But unfortunately, because we're in a project right now, the changes we do here only affect this project.
Got it. Great. Super helpful.
The other thing in here, so we've gone ahead and marked those up. So now if we go into our markup, you'll see that now there's different changes. And then again, life happens. Maybe, in fact, we come in here and decide to add some more items. You know, she liked that so much. Let's go and find some other, you know, little knickknack or something to go on our shelves. Whatever it is, you can come in here and, again, look through your product list. We can even go and clip and add new items in here. I'm just going to go ahead and add this bicycle table. And we can come over here and close that out. And now that bicycle table is on here. And so even though it wasn't on the proposal, I can definitely come in here and make those changes. Again, maybe I'm just going to call that a gathering table, or maybe even a bicycle table. That makes more sense. It's not assigned to a room right now, so I could just kind of come over here and add a room. We'll put that in the game room. And now it'll pop up into the game room. So we've added those things. Now if we come down and look at our pricing, obviously our pricing has adjusted accordingly. And now we have our logged payment for our deposit, but now we also have some more payments that they need to make for an additional $3,000. Now I can go ahead and send this over, have them pay it, but maybe I want to schedule a payment. I can definitely do that and break that other payment into two. And maybe I can say this is, you know, maybe our halfway payment. I mean, you can give it different names. It doesn't have to be payment one, payment two, installment three, whatever you want to call it. And you can even change it over here. So maybe in this case, we want to take $2,000 and that only leaves $16 for the next payment. And again, you can come in here and change those due dates as well. So maybe we'll make, since we had that one being due on Monday, maybe change this out, make that due in June. And then maybe this one will be due, you know, towards the end of June. Again, however you want to do it, this is more for, I think our general contractors use the payments like this. For most designers, it's, you know, pay for the products and then, you know, once they're delivered and in the home and ready to go, send them that invoice for all the kind of changes that happened. So it's really just that deposit and that one payment when you're done. But you do have the abilities to put it in there. So I just wanted to show it to you. Again, adding files. If we come up here and look at our more actions, now we're going to have a couple different ones. Again, we can save it as a template. So if this is an invoice that you want to send versus an estimate or a proposal, again, maybe that consultation template, you can go ahead and save this and use it again and again. You can also export it as a PDF. We can also do our tear sheets from here. Some designers, I will say, do skip completely from that proposal stage, just make invoices. If you're able to do that, you can. I kind of like to get paid up front and before I order it, but really up to you guys. And then this issue invoice is sometimes a little bit confusing. What that does, it's really, I kind of wish it was called like a bookkeeper button. That's going to lock this. When you hit issue, that means, hey, I've done everything. Everything is in that home. This project is 100% done. Nothing is going to change. I used to say, make sure it's when the project is done and everything is delivered. I might even say wait a week now so that you get that call a couple days later saying, no, I really want to add more. I don't like this. Because once you hit issue, this generates an actual document number for your bookkeeping records. If you're using our QuickBooks integration, it will actually at that point sync to QuickBooks. But the big thing is no more changes. So you don't want to do that until you know that this is ready and set. And you don't have to do that at any time to take a payment. So you can come in here, send this to the client, take a payment, have something change, make changes. And like, again, just issue the invoice at the very end. I know a lot of when I first saw it, I was thinking, oh, issue, like send it. Okay, good. That gets you into a little bit of trouble because now you can't make changes. You'd have to go and, add that bicycle table to a different invoice instead of adding it to this invoice if it was issued. If we come over here to preview and share, again, just like when we previewed the other one, our proposal, you're going to get all those same different items. This one, you really don't need an approval on per se, and you can see you don't have that approval per line item anymore. And that's just because, again, approving is more associated with a proposal. This is more of an invoice or a receipt for after the work is done. So you really shouldn't be adding anything to it that they're not going to approve. Item details, item info, again, all those same things that we were looking at before. And if we scroll on down, here's their balance. And again, remember, we had markup just to show it to you. They do not have markup in here. They are not going to see that at all.
Mike, we do have a question, and I don't know if you have a recommendation from your experience of working with designers, but Michelle asked, is there any best practices for how to incorporate like outside financing?
Sure. So outside financing is where I would use a retainer. I know you think retainer, and I was just about to go over those. Retainers are a way of showing this money that's not necessarily related to anything, but it's also a way of getting that outside financing. So if you're working with somebody and they're going to make monthly payments of $25,000 or, hundreds of thousands of dollars, whatever that is, then that's where I would make a retainer for that. And maybe even break it up if it's going to be installments, maybe make that 4 different retainers. Like I said, in just a second, I'll go over those. But that's really how I would do any sort of financing along those lines, where if they're going to be paying you long-term in many installments versus putting it all onto one invoice or something like that, especially because what I find with that is if you're financing like an entire home remodel, you might have, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars are involved, but this invoice is just for the light fixtures. So you wouldn't want them to, you'd be able to use that retainer and apply, $13,000 towards these light fixtures and still have the other money from that retainer left to use on the other documents.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
And then you can see, because I did separate those payments out, they are able to come in here and click pay now. And again, if I had that set up where they could pay online to me, that would give them a pop-up where it would give them credit card option, ACH option. Again, they have a contact you option on there to make that payment with you manually if they need to. But that is your client's invoice. So if there aren't questions on that, let me jump over to, there's kind of one more step of the project. We've logged our payments, we've got these delivered. The next thing that I personally would do is create some purchase orders. And this, again, you can do at any point. Some people wait until the invoice is paid and do it kind of after work, kind of like balancing your checkbook. You do it later on. Some people do it during the project, however you want to do it. But the purchase order is going to be your vendor side. So when I click on this, you can see that sheep's head thing was associated with Cocosticos because I clipped it and it had that vendor. The other ones don't have a vendor selected. So I can come in here from my vendor list and see where I got them. So maybe I got that from West Elm, and the coffee tables came from Crate and Barrel. And then we have our bicycle table, which actually was from Cocos as well. And then the electrical work, that I could assign, maybe it's Nelson Plumbing, or I'm sorry, Nelson Electrical. If it's something that I don't want to make a PO for, again, maybe my consultation that was on here, or my design hours that are on here, you don't need to. You can just click it, and then it's not on the list to make it. And that's the other thing. Like maybe I don't want to do my invoice for this one yet. I'm still waiting for it to ship, or waiting for something. I don't have to make that one right now. I could just do these other ones. Create our purchase orders. Now, going back to the question about the tracking and, does it show the declined items and things like that? That's why you want to do the pathway that I just showed, which again was if we were in the invoice And you could also do it from a proposal as well. But if you're in the invoice, more actions, create purchase orders, you want to do that because it takes that same item. It says, hey, this item was on a proposal. This item was on an invoice. Now the same item is on a purchase order so that you can see that flow. If I were to go back into here, you can go into purchase orders and just create a new one, but then it's not related to anything. So that's really for like one-offs and things like that. Like, again, maybe it's the fabric that you had to buy that you're now charging as part of a manufactured sofa, or, you bought fabric and took it to a seamstress and they made curtains, things like that, where, those pieces need to be purchase ordered, but not the full product itself. It's kind of a little bit different. So that's where I really would always use that link within the document to create my purchase orders, just so there's a link. And then if I come in here and we look at our purchase order, again, these are our documents. They're really for our review. Some manufacturers and things like that still use purchase orders, and you're more than welcome in sharing these directly to them, using it as an Excel. But for those trips to like Home Depot where you buy something, it's just really a record of what you did. But you do have a document. So here's our vendor's information. Here again is where we're shipping it to Wanda's apartment. Here's the items. And you can see again, even though I changed it to sheep, well, it's still showing as sheep, but I do still have that description, and I do have the information, the SKU numbers, all that information I would have clipped so that I can still use the right coding and the right SKUs and things like that. It's not going to change based on what I put into the project. Over here, we have the pricing, and that again came right from the clipper where I clipped it at $900. It's not the price that I was charging the client. Here's the shipping. Remember, I keyed that in on the invoice. So it's just taking that right from the invoice and putting it here. The thing is if I change it here, so maybe in shipping there was a delay, and so they agreed to lower it to $150. This is only going to update your PO. It's not going to update backwards to the invoice. If I wanted to go in and include that discount to my customer, I could go into the invoice and make that change as well. But in this case, if it's just something that, again, maybe normally this would be $900, but they instead gave me $100 rebate, from all the purchasing I've been doing from them. So maybe this is actually only going to be $800 cost to me. I can go in there and make any sort of manual changes I want to it. I can also even go in there and put in a manual ship date. And then is the item taxable? Is the shipping taxable? Again, depending on where you're working in, those could definitely be different items. And then also based on your vendor. This is populated because this vendor charges me sales tax. All right, so that's why I put it on there. If you have your reseller's license and the vendor doesn't charge sales tax, that's one of the things you can put in the vendor information. There's a little box for it, and then it would be none, and you wouldn't even see any taxes. And then that way you're getting your true reseller's price with no sales tax charged at point of sale. Down here, again, because I don't have that selected, that's why it's showing as charged. I just want to probably put those two in unison. And that shipping, maybe that shipping was for both items. Maybe there is a per line shipping cost. So maybe this was another $200. Again, I didn't put that in on the invoice, so it's not here. But you can also add more items too. So if there was, it's up here. So if I did want to add some more items, I could put something else in on here. Lots of different things you can do in here. Again, you do have different files. So again, maybe there's some sort of file, maybe your card that you use for your resellers, you have to show that to them every time. So maybe you want to attach that here. Any terms and conditions or memos, things like you would have to mention to the vendor if you were going to send this directly to them. Or again, this is a great place to put in your notes. If this was a Home Depot trip, you could put your note in here, got a Memorial Day clearance item. That's why the price was lowered from what I originally had originally calculated, something like that. Any sort of notes for yourself. But that's your proposals. The other thing you can do over here is log payments. You can't really, again, it's not like an invoice where the client's going to pay that. This is you logging your payments. So you can come in here and say, I'm going to mark this as billed. and I used my credit card, and it was a Visa, and you can put in your payment date. And this is, again, you're going to be paying your vendor. So this is really just you logging that payment for the records and for your reporting. Because what will happen later on that project tracker we've been talking about is it's going to look at this and say, okay, well, she sold it for $975. Originally it was $900, but it was actually only $800. So now our profit is $175. So it will show us all those things, but it's always going to go to the source of truth for what you paid on it is always going to be the purchase order. So that's why these are kind of really important to do versus just kind of listing out what that cost is. You always want to show like, this is what I actually paid. And that's your purchase orders. Again, real simple. Preview and share. If you did want to send it, this is what your vendor is going to see. So you've got lots of information here. You can send a copy when you send it. Again, you can show them the item info as well. Really up to you. But again, has your branding on it as well. It makes it a nice, quick document, whether it's just for your records or something you're going to send to a vendor. So that's kind of our documents related to a project. Before I jump into the retainer, is there any question on the purchase order side?
Not specifically on the purchase orders, but actually from a question we had previously, I just put in a chat, kind of like hot off the press. We just actually made a recent improvement because we do know that pricing is changing quite a bit. So if you're working on creating documents and you're adjusting the price from something you previously clipped, if you hit the ellipses over to the right, you can click to update your library. So there is a way to do that. So take advantage of that.
I knew that was coming. I didn't know it had been released. That's why I said no.
Oh, plus. Just happened.
Perfect. So now let me jump in to our retainers screen. And again, we were talking about financing and, different ways of taking payments. I was using that proposal as a deposit. Maybe, again, you have that where you're redoing her entire apartment. So this is going to be a big project. I might not do deposits on every document. I might just want one great big lump sum that I can kind of work from, maybe multiple lump sums you can work from. So if you add a retainer, it's super simple. This is the easiest document you have. And all your information's up here. We can rename it if you wanted to. Retainer, jump in here, maybe call this installment 1. So now we've got that as our name. And then retainer item, add description. First payment to start project. And then you can, I guess, give it different units. Maybe it's going to be in hours. Maybe you want them to prepay for 20 hours at, whatever your rate is. I'm just going to leave that blank and make this, again, I'm going to assume you guys are doing gangbusters, and we'll make that a $250,000 deposit. And that's pretty much it. You do have your settings over here where you can take away those units. And again, if you don't want the cost to be on there, that's fine. Not quite sure why you would do that, but let me just show you what that looks like. So now it's just a one item. Go back in here and add those back. Again, this is your column for your view, not necessarily the client's. Here's where maybe, again, you can break this down into those financing payments. So maybe this is going to be 5 payments at $50,000, whatever it is that you want to do. And when we go ahead and preview and share this to the client, again, there's not really much you can add here. You can't add items. All you can really do is put in a retainer item. But it just sends us over, and then you would be able to collect that payment. Again, hopefully they would pay online. I could log the payment as well. And then I have this as a retainer, which let me show you how I would use that. So I'm going to go ahead and go back in to edit and come back over here and log a payment. I'm going to log a, let's say I'm working with the Mafia here, and we'll give it a cash payment of $250,000. So now I have this retainer. So if I come back in here to my credits and retainers screen, I'm going to see that now I have a $250,000 balance available. And I took that payment. So basically I can click on there and see the details, but I can also go back into that invoice. And I could have done this on the proposal too. I just didn't have the retainer made. I can log a payment. And then that's where I can apply the retainer. And in this case, I'm going to apply $1,641.95. I could send a receipt. So again, they would get a copy saying, hey, this payment's been made towards this invoice. And now when I go back to our retainers and credits, there you can see that the total retainer was at $250,000, but at this point I only have an available balance of 248. Now the items over here, again, you can preview and share. You can see that you can't delete this. That's one of the big things is after you take a payment on these, they're not deletable. They're also not editable once you take a payment. So that's why if you do want to take like those 50,000, I might break it up into 5 different 50,000 installments if they're going to be coming, in different times, things like that. But you do have this. And if they're hey, this project fell through, I'm not working with her anymore, I do have this issue refund button. A lot of designers think, oh, hey, that's going to send them their money back. But remember, like this was a cash payment. The system doesn't have the ability to actually access your bank account and move money. So the issue refund would just take this out of the system. And then you would be responsible for wiring the money, writing them a check, getting them that refund back. But for your reporting and everything, it wouldn't say, hey, you still have $248,000 of her money. So that's where you would issue that refund. So that's retainers. Again, super easy.
Yeah, it's a helpful distinction too.
Yeah.
And Lori, she actually has a great question. So she's basically asking, how do we issue a credit if something like maybe we put on the invoice has to be returned? What does that look like? What's the best workflow?
Let's go in and do that. So there's a couple different things that you can do. So again, maybe on this invoice, we're going to go ahead and we can add an item. So I'm going to go in here and add a new item. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to add a service. And I think I have one on here, discount. So I just created a service called discount. So I put that on here. I think it took, yeah. So I can go ahead and add that. And this might be, again, the shipping took too long, whatever it is. So I'm just going to say, you know what, I'm going to give, maybe they referred a new client to me. So referral credit of, and again, you can call it whatever you want. And you could put this on the line above of $50. So I can come over here and just basically make that -50. And that's, again, where my typing, try doing it again. There we go. So now I have that line item for -$50. So that's one way. That's a real simple, I misspelled referral. So that's, again, something you want to give them shipping discount, something happened on the, customer satisfaction, whatever it is. Very easy, add that on there. We can come down here and we'll see that the amount went down by $50. Now, if let's just say again that something major happened and that coffee table, I could not get it, just not available. So it came in damaged, whatever it is that happened. What I would do, if they'd already paid this document, then there's two ways of going. One is I could come in here and put $0. Now, the thing with that is that it will lower it down. And if it was paid, that would then create a credit of whatever the price they had paid for it was. That's one way of doing it. But I don't really like that way. It is totally acceptable, totally fine to do. What I would do instead, though, is I like shopping at Target. So I kind of want it to look like a Target receipt when something's returned. So I'm going to go in here and add an item. And I'm going to go into my products and I'm going to find that exact same coffee table. And I'm going to come down here and find that coffee table. Now I'm going to add returned to it. So again, for my own notes, so I can say, hey, that was returned. Now I want to make sure everything matches. So I'm going to come in here and we're saying that that was $550. So I'm going to change that cost to match $550. And then, so everything's matching now. So we're good. And I'm going to make that quantity, if it'll let me do it now, a -1. So now I'm going to go ahead and assign the room to it as well, so I can put them right next to each other. Well, I'm not sure why it keeps jumping me around, but so now I have, and it will look just like a target receipt. Here's where you paid for the item. Here's where you got your refund for the item. And that way you're seeing that they're seeing both items are going to have the same cost. We never put in a shipping for these guys, so that's okay. If there was a restocking fee or something like that, or maybe, again, you're not giving them the full amount back, you could still go in there and, again, instead of it being that way, maybe I could make the price $50 and that would be just giving them a $50. And that's where I changed the wrong one. I would change this one to $50, and that's where I would say, instead of it being returned, maybe it was a damaged, and so I want to give them $50 off. I could do it that way, or I could do it this way. But if I go in here and save this now and come and look at, so we've got positive 555, negative 555. If we come on down here, at this point, I hadn't fully paid all of it. So all it's done is taken away that last custom payment and lowered it down. But if I had this as fully paid, so I'm going to change it real quickly here. Get rid of that one. Let me mark this as paid. Okay, so it's over the payment. So then I'm going to go ahead and let me take this out as well. I'm sorry. I should have marked it as paid first.
This is helpful because I know this does.
Yeah.
So
and it also, that shows you where if you're doing it before the final payment, you're just lowering the cost of the invoice. In this case, because I'm going to go ahead and log, maybe we'll apply some more of the retainer. And that's actually, I don't, well, I'm going to then log this last payment. And I'm going to make that one cash. Okay. Now let's go back in and make those changes. Discount. First, I'm going to show you that one where I make that -50. And now I go in there and preview and share. It's fully paid, but it went down by $50. So if I go back over to Wanda's apartment and I go back into the credits and retainers, it's not showing up for some reason, but there should be a $50. Let me jump back to the invoice and make sure it's saved right. Oh, that's why I didn't put that in. Negative. All right. So now I'm going to issue the invoice with those negative items. And now we should end up, because we've overpaid this. Now I'm hoping it'll be there. Credits and retainers. And for some reason, it's still not showing, but there should be a credit here. And then what you'll see is that the amount went back. Anything that if you apply a retainer and then lower the cost, that money doesn't create a credit. It just goes back to the retainer. So the system is smart enough to do that. I'm just trying to figure out why it's showing a negative amount due.
Mike, we do have a question.
Okay.
Does the invoice have to be issued to see the credit?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because normally it should show there. Everything's paid. I'm not sure why it's not showing. One thing I did not mention, everything we're doing is in the activity stream. So I'm just going to go down here in the activity stream. Mm-hmm. Shows the manual payment. So I think we're good. It looks like what it did is it deleted that payment. So that what it probably did was it sent all that money, and that's why we're not seeing the credit, is it sent it back to the retainer balance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I apologize. It's because I paid it by the retainer that we're not seeing the credit.
Big retainer from that boss.
but that is good to show you that the retainer is really kind of smart, because if something does change, it just goes back to the retainer, and there's no crediting involved or anything like that. Where if we had not done this and had been paid in cash, then that would be on that credits and retainer screen of a credit. That credit looks just like the retainer. If I go down in here, it would just be another header that would say credits, and then it would show you the total payment and what document the payment was made on, the remaining available balance of that. And then you could, just like when we paid this document by the retainer, you would see a little button that said, when you go to pay it, it would say, use the credit balance, and you'd be able to use that. So basically a credit is just a retainer that didn't start as a retainer. But there is one big caveat I do need to mention with credits, and that is because a proposal is a pre-tax document according to your bookkeepers. You're taking money as a deposit saying that you're going to do the job. You cannot apply a credit to a proposal. You can only apply a credit to an invoice, because again, you made your credit from an invoice, so it would have to go to an invoice. It doesn't normally cause any issues, but every now and then we have somebody who they did a full big deposit on their proposal, and now they're trying to apply a credit because they made a change to it and added more items. You unfortunately wouldn't be able to do that until you make it into an invoice, but you'd still have that credit there. Again, not a major issue, just a little hiccup in the scheme of things. But now we've done our retainers. I mean, we've done pretty much all of our money. We've done our proposal, our invoice, our purchase orders, looked at credits and retainers. Any other questions before I move on?
I don't think so.
All right. So now there's a couple other things that I definitely want to show you. And one is that project tracker. I've been telling you about it all day. Now it's your chance to see it. Here it is. And now I know it looks just like a list, but you can see this is everything we did. So like our last thing we did was add that returned item, and it's in here. And if we look at it and we go across the board, it's showing us the negative markup value, the unit cost, how much it's got everything in here. If I had added a shipping date to it, that would be in here as well. And it's really cool. You can look at this however you want. You can look at just items that were approved. Remember, we had the question about the declined items. We could look at just items that were declined in this project, maybe because they're saying, hey, that's something you sent me 3 months ago. I decide I want it now. You can real quickly go and find that. These are those pending items that didn't end up on an item. I had 2 of those in there, so that's why that's in there. And then here's all, again, your approved items. So lots of ways of filtering it. You can also go in by, is it something that's just on a PO? Is it something that's been invoiced? Is it a service? Is it a product? Maybe you just want to look at a room. Just find out what you put in that game room, apply, and there's just our game rooms. And you can also export this, which makes it really kind of cool. It turns it into an Excel. The only thing you don't get is the image when you do that. But again, really great for doing reports. If you wanted to come in here and just look at how much you're making from your markups, you'd be able to just take that markup value down the column and put a sum and see how much money you made. Makes it really, really easy. And again, it completely stays up to date. The other thing that you can do here is, again, we got these 2 items from Cocastico. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click on edit. So those are those 2 items. I can come in here and maybe I got that email. I just paid them. that is going to ship out on the 27th. And we should receive that sometime in June, let's just say the 6th. And now maybe I'm going to receive it at my warehouse or at my location, and I'm going to deliver it to the customer shortly thereafter. So I will slide that over. And not sure why it's not letting me size that correctly. Oh, go back into edit again. But that's where I could change the delivery date to, again, a different day than the receive date. I know there's always some confusion as to what those two are. Again, if you're getting it at your, and then again, maybe on that ceiling fan, remember we're doing or ceiling light, we could have an install date. Maybe that's the day the electrician's coming in. So you can add all these different items. Just going to put some in there just so you can see our room. I think those were all items going into the study. We can put in an order status. Maybe it's en route. And any existing notes. Now when we save that, those are going to be all added to our item here. So it's really kind of cool. Remember how I changed the shipping on the PO? So it's telling me right here that I sold this at $224 in shipping, but I'm only charging, or I was only on the purchase order, it was only $150. So even little changes like that, again, here is, the pricing on here where I have it really marked up. And so again, all the different things that they kind of fall into here. Anything that you've made, if you're not hearing my assignment, I really do kind of like this. Now, every now and then, and remember, I don't like doing this because I hate deleting anything, but like this is on here twice by accident. I can come up here and delete an item. So if there's ever something that you added to a project that you don't want to have a record of ever having added it again, purely a mistake, you can come in here and delete that item. In that case, like I said, I added it twice by mistake. So that makes sense that I would want to delete that, but I wouldn't want to delete any of the other items. And then just to show you that here's all the documents that it's on as well. So I'm going to jump in here to the invoice. And this was that same invoice we were working on, but I'm going to come in here and I just want to get over here to the item overview. This is that same item that we're looking at. So I could come in here and make changes. So again, here's my general details. And then here's my schedule. So I could, whereas I just added those ship dates on for the table and the sheep from the project tracker. I'm just trying to show you can also, if you're on the invoice when you happen to be getting those, you can come in here and do that for that item. And then those will be on the project tracker as well. So whether you make the change in here, make it directly on the project tracker, make it on a PO, however you get those in there, that project tracker is always going to be up to date and a great place to go in there and see where things are at. Questions on that project tracker?
I don't see any, but please keep them coming in. Yeah. This is a really great tool. So many different use cases too, on how this could be helpful to you and your business. I know I met with a lot of designers a couple weeks ago, and we're having to keep their clients up to date because shipping just keeps getting delayed. So a really great tool that was a common request. So hopefully you find this really useful. Yeah,
and I mean, we're looking at one. It literally only has 3 or 4 items on it. If this was a full project, the fact that you can go in here and, like I said, just jump into one room and then slide over and see all the shippings, it makes it so easy and so useful to. And you can even customize it. I haven't shown you that yet. Again, if you're in that part where you don't really care about the item descriptions anymore, you just really are caring about those ship dates, hide those. And now you've got, less to scroll through to see just what you want. And again, just like everything else, you can add a new column. So if, again, you're that seamstress that needs to always see the cut line, you can add that and have that be a column on here as well.
Yes, and sorting by these custom columns is going to be coming soon. So definitely be your little library and Bible of all the things that are going on.
And I mean, even if it's not there right now in the system, it's such a real quick button push to do an Excel. And then you have all the power of Excel to search and find and summarize and all those cool things. And just two more things to show you over here under that menu is under the export, you do have those tear sheets again. Remember, we had made them from the proposal. I showed you where you can make them from the invoice. Again, maybe this is how you're doing your draft before you even get to a document. You could put tons of products on here, make tear sheets, show them to your client, and then move just those items to the proposal. Really up to you. The other thing that you can do is do an FF&E. I'm just going to choose a couple items here, and we'll make that. So if I come in, I do an FFE. That's a fixture furniture schedule. And I can come in here and it's all the items selected. What do I want to show on that? Again, maybe it's something that you are going to share with your client. So you don't want them to see the purchasing cost. You can always take those away, put it on the selling cost. Whatever details you want to add, download that. Again, it gets emailed to me. So give me 1 second for it to come in and then I'll slide that over. Actually, in this case, it's just an attachment. So let me pull that back over. And there is, unfortunately, that description on that bike is a little bit too big to fit on one word, on one thing. But here you go. And that's, again, a great way to make a lookbook or something for your vendors or your, I've seen some e-designers. I know we don't talk about e-designers a whole lot, but sometimes they'll use this to send their shopping list to the clients. Lots of different things that you can do with that FF&E. And again, you saw, you can add the shipping dates and the product info and all those things to it so that you'd have a lot of information to share with your team or whoever you need. But that's our project tracker. And last thing, again, if I wanted to go shopping and just add items in here, I could add any sort of items in here. And again, those would just be your draft items. So you can do that from here. You can do it, again, when we're clipping originally, or you can do it from the products. All right. Any questions again on Project Tracker before I move on?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Then the next thing I'm going to talk about, which goes hand in hand with that Project Tracker, is what we call the client dashboard. So we have this, it's our landing page or our dashboard. To me, the Project Tracker is kind of a dashboard, but we have our client dashboard as well, which up here you can see you can share the client dashboard. You can also edit it. So I'm just going to click on edit before we jump in. Here is what is possibly available for them to see. So you can see that the client's information is all going to be in there. If they had a project code, again, those stuff that we didn't assign when we were starting. If we had additional addresses, they would see that. Here's our different rooms. And then here is our financial details. I never put in a budget, but I could have put in a budget as well. But that is just some information. Let me go back out of that. And then I'm going to click on Share Client Dashboard. And here is what the client is going to see. So that's going to be the home page here, which basically is the message center. So this way, if you want to work with your client and send messages back and forth and not necessarily email, you can definitely come in here, send all sorts of emails to the client. Or not, I'm sorry, I just tongue-tied. You can send all sorts of messages. You can actually add attachments. You can add images. So again, maybe you're working virtually in this day and age. So maybe you send them a message and have them send you pictures of the space back. Again, they don't have to have email access if you're working. They just need to reply with that image. You also are going to have your financials. And we haven't shared anything, so there's nothing in here right now. But anything that you share with your client are going to be on here. So we did share that one proposal. So it's in here. So the client would, again, if you're working on a huge project, they would have that huge list of all their proposals. And whether they're paid or unpaid, you can actually select if it's which of those they're going to see. So again, since we have all those, I'm going to go ahead and put them all on there. So you can see they don't have anything outstanding right now. They've paid a whole lot of money. They still have an available retainer. So they would be able to say, okay, great, and see all those different things. Again, if they had lots and lots of documents, any attachments, those are all those terms and conditions that you may have shared with them, images you may have shared with them. All of that lives here so that you don't have to constantly check in with your client. You could, if they have a question like, hey, when's that invoice due? You could just say, oh, hey, remember you have your project dashboard, resend a link to them, and then they would be able to click into that and see all of that information. So it's a great way of staying up to date with your clients. Again, super simple to use. You can also, as you can see, like that invoice we're working on, I never technically shared it with the client. So that's why it's not showing up here. You don't have to worry about them seeing your work as you're going. Anything that you shared, obviously you shared it with them, they're okay to see it. Anything that you do not want them to see is not going to be in there for them to see. And again, right now I clicked on share. So that's why I've got this over on the side where it's having me send an email introducing them to the project dashboard. If you're going to send them your own email, or maybe you're texting with them, working on over the phone, you could actually use a link as well. You just have to set so that the link is accurate, what you want them to see. And then if you want them to be able to share that link or not. So we can just go ahead and turn that on. And then we would be able to again, copy and paste this and send this over via text message, and they'd have access to their client dashboard. Questions on that?
Yeah, good. There are some questions coming in. So tomorrow we're actually going to go over some more details with a timeline, a Gantt chart, and other things that can be published to the dashboard. So it can be like your central hub. Kelly was mentioning that her clients sometimes lose access to this link or are having trouble finding it. So you can, again, like send it in an email. I suggest maybe they bookmark it. So it can be like that central place. So they're not like texting you after hours on the weekend, bugging you. And this is kind of where they can go to for the updates. Yeah.
And the other kind of use that I always see is, and especially, well, I guess we're a little bit past it, but every January you get that customer that you worked with last April that says, hey, can you send me a copy of all my invoices? This is perfect. You just send them that one dashboard link. Now they have access to everything for their taxes. You don't have to reprint anything or go through your books. And another cool thing is you can invite your subs if you do have, any sub vendors or things like that are working that you want to have access to the system. You can invite them as well. And they would actually have their access to their own version of that client dashboard where it would show them all those same things and not necessarily give them full access because you don't want them to, go in there and create an invoice.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Keep the questions coming in because we're almost done. So I want to make sure that we're answering all of your questions. Mike, one thing that I would love for you to do for some of our attendees who weren't on the line yesterday, I think one of the most important things is making sure that they know how to get help outside of maybe just attending this academy this week.
For sure.
If you wouldn't mind maybe hovering over help at the top here, we can show them some great resources.
All right. So here's our help. You're going to have access to our phone number. You do have our help center, which is more for our bookworms. So we can come in here and, kind of click on any of these little tiles and they'll get you into articles about those things where you can kind of jump in. Go back into help real quick. You do have our video tutorials. Those are the ones that I like a little bit better because it's going to take you into videos. So you don't necessarily have to read. You can have somebody like Chloe or our other people kind of go in and walk you through different things. And then if you haven't already, let me show you here. Let me just open it in a new tab. We do have a YouTube library as well, which there isn't a link in there just yet, but you do have our Houzz Pro YouTube library. I would definitely bookmark that page if you haven't already. Maybe Chloe, can you throw that in the chat for them?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's another help. And then jump back over here. So again, under here, you can also jump into your learning and your help centers as well. So a lot of different places to go to get help. You can also go to learn. And then we can also, if you have, something that you're working on and it's 2:00 in the morning, we're not available by phone at that point, go ahead and just submit a support inquiry. That goes to a great team that is going to be able to answer any of your questions, any sort of technical issues or anything like that. They will jump in and be more than happy to help get you an answer. And then just since we're here, I'll also show you that we do have our service providers directory. And that might be, again, you guys jumped into this new software. Now you're just doing gangbusters and you have to hire a bookkeeper, but you want to make sure it's somebody who knows Houzz Pro. Jump over here to find a bookkeeper. You're going to get a whole list of all the bookkeepers that have been working with us for a long time and know both our system as well as the bookkeeping world, and will be more than happy to assist. And you can see, if I go back into help, there's also purchasing agents, marketing agents, all sorts of different things. And then we even have our pro-to-pro discussion, our little web page, or our vlogs and things like that for you guys to chat amongst yourselves.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mike. And again, please do continue to put your questions in. We're going to try to get to as many as we can. Could you reshare one more time how you got to the bookkeeper resources? We got a question on that one. Sure.
It's under help and then service provider directory, find a bookkeeper.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So for the last couple things here of what I would love to go over is just to make sure that you guys are going to be with us tomorrow too. So if you are planning on attending, what we will be going over is some of our design tools, including the 3D floor plan, our mood boards, and hopefully I can actually give you a sneak peek to something on the roadmap. We're also going to go over time and expenses, tasks, and our timeline Gantt chart. So we got a lot in store for you tomorrow too. So I hope that you guys can make it. But please, if you do have any questions above and beyond what Mike and I covered today, of course, use all those support resources. Get in touch with us, chat with us. We are here to help. But so glad to have you here with us. And we hope that you have an amazing afternoon or evening wherever you are. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.